have that good high work ethic here.
Trying to win Super Bowls, man. It's the only way you get there. It's exciting to play with this team, knowing how much firepower we have and how much we love each other. And, you know, we're in here every single day grinding our tails off, trying to get that fixed.
When a stadium goes quiet, the noise doesn't disappear. It moves inward. For Travis Kelce, silence was never empty. It was heavy, because when the cheers stop, something else begins to speak. Questions, doubt, fear, not about legacy, about identity. For years, his name meant reliability, presence, readiness. But what happens when the schedule ends? When the body slows down? When the role that defined you no longer needs you? This is not a football story. This is a story about what remains when performance ends. About the fear athletes rarely admit out loud. The fear of waking up without purpose. Of being remembered but no longer needed. When the lights dim and the field empties, who are you then? That question waited for Travis Kelce long before retirement ever did.
Oh, man, you just believe. You just believe every snap. No.
Before we move on, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss any of our upcoming documentaries. Long before the idea of after football became real, Travis Kelce felt it approaching. Not as panic, as awareness. Every season carried an expiration date. Every snap moved the clock forward. He didn't fear the work. He feared the absence of it. Football had given his days structure, his body direction, his mind urgency. Without it, time would stretch differently. Uncontrolled, unmeasured. Athletes are trained to fill space with preparation. Empty space feels dangerous. Kelce learned early that silence invites reflection. Reflection invites truth. And truth isn't always comfortable. So he stayed busy, physically ready, mentally occupied. But even in motion, the thought returned. One day the stadium would be quiet, and the noise he avoided would finally have room to speak.
We found a way there in the fourth quarter to get some things going on offense.
Success delayed the fear, but it never erased it. Winning gives purpose momentum, but momentum fades. Travis Kelce understood that being celebrated and being needed are not the same thing. Fans love performance. Systems rely on availability. Neither guarantees belonging once the role ends. He watched former players struggle with stillness, not because they missed applause, but because they missed relevance. Relevance gives days meaning. Without it, mornings feel longer. He never said this publicly. Athletes aren't encouraged to talk about endings. They're encouraged to extend them. Train harder, recover faster, push limits, delay reality. Kelce did all of that. But in quiet moments, the question surfaced again. What happens when effort no longer leads to impact? When preparation no longer has an audience? That uncertainty followed him longer than any injury ever did.
Goal, shout out to Harry, and just put up some points for our defense, man. Our defense is playing their tail off right now. So.
Football doesn't just occupy time. It organizes identity. Travis Kelce wasn't just playing a sport. He was fulfilling a function. Teammate, leader, anchor. Those roles give clarity. Without them, identity fragments. He noticed how often conversations revolved around readiness. Next game, next season, next expectation. Rarely the future beyond that. Beyond football felt undefined. Undefined feels unsafe. Athletes are conditioned to control outcomes. The future without football offers no playbook. No drills, no guarantees. Kelce prepared obsessively for everything except absence. Because absence doesn't respond to preparation. It demands acceptance. And acceptance feels like surrender. So he postponed it mentally, focused on now, on execution, but the awareness lingered. One day, the jersey would come off for the last time, and no one prepares you for who you become after.
It's the best, man. He's our fearless leader, man. That guy's the most competitive human being I know.
The fear wasn't about money, or fame, or status. It was about usefulness, about waking up and not being essential to anything urgent. Travis Kelce thrived on necessity, on being required. Football gave him a reason to push through pain, to sacrifice comfort. Without that reason, what replaces the drive? He watched retired players search for routine. Some found it. Many didn't. The silence after football isn't empty. It's loud with comparison, with memories, with self-questioning. Kelce felt pressure to plan the next chapter perfectly. But perfection doesn't exist without structure, and structure disappears when the schedule ends. He didn't want to drift, didn't want to feel irrelevant, didn't want to lose the edge that defined him. So he kept the fear quiet and kept moving forward, even as the future waited patiently.
We love him for how he leads this team, both on the field and practice throughout the week.
As seasons passed, the fear evolved. It became less about endings and more about timing. When is the right moment to stop? Too early and you're unfinished. Too late and the game decides for you. That uncertainty weighed on Travis Kelce. Football had taught him control. Retirement offered none. He noticed how conversations change with age. Less about growth, more about longevity. Longevity is borrowed time. Borrowed time increases pressure. Every play carries consequence, not just physically, emotionally, because the closer the end gets, the louder the future becomes. Kelce felt torn between extending his role and preserving himself, between legacy and sustainability. That tension never resolved cleanly. It followed him into every offseason, every recovery, every evaluation of his body. He didn't fear pain. He feared losing the version of himself that thrived under pressure, the one football created.
And right now, man, it's he's leading us into victory.
Recognition complicated everything. Success made walking away harder. When you're still effective, stopping feels irresponsible. Travis Kelce understood how rare relevance is, how quickly it disappears. Walking away from it requires certainty. Certainty he didn't always have. Fans see highlights. Athletes feel where isn't weakness, it's accumulation. Accumulation changes priorities, but changing priorities threatens identity. Kelce wondered who he would be without weekly validation, without teammates relying on him, without coaches needing him ready. Those dependencies reinforced purpose. Removing them felt like removing structure from life. He didn't want to be remembered as someone who stayed too long, but he feared being forgotten once he left. That paradox defined a pressure. Stay and risk decline. Leave and risk irrelevance. There is no easy answer to that equation. Only consequences.
You gotta do your homework, baby. You gotta do your homework. Little Wildcat at University of Cincinnati.
The body notices before the mind admits. Recovery took longer. Preparation became more deliberate. Travis Kelce listened carefully to what his body told him. But bodies don't speak clearly. They hint. They warn. They negotiate. Every ache carried a question. Is this temporary? Or is it permanent? The future pressed closer with each unanswered signal. Kelce didn't panic. He adjusted. Adjustment delays confrontation, but it doesn't remove it. He saw how quickly the league moves on, how loyalty favors availability. That reality isn't cruel. It's practical. Football rewards readiness, not history. Kelce respected that. Still, the idea of no longer being part of that system unsettled him, because systems provide belonging. Without them, belonging must be rebuilt from scratch. And rebuilding after decades of structure is harder than anyone admits.
It just tells you how much we're going to fight, and that's a great team. It's a tough team.
Silence became louder during off seasons. Fewer meetings, less urgency, more time to think. Travis Kelce filled that time carefully. Training, media, projects, anything to avoid stillness. Stillness invites reflection. Reflection invites fear. The fear wasn't of failure. It was of not knowing what comes next. Athletes are rarely taught how to transition. They're taught how to endure. Endurance works until the reason disappears. Kelce asked himself difficult questions privately. What does fulfillment look like without competition? What replaces the adrenaline? What replaces the identity? Those questions didn't demand immediate answers, but they refused to go away. They waited, in quiet rooms, in late nights, in moments when the stadium noise no longer drowned them out.
We did there in the fourth quarter with a couple 90-yard drives. That was huge for us. Yeah.
The fear of after football isn't dramatic. It's subtle, persistent. It sits beneath success and waits. Travis Kelce learned that fear doesn't always push you away from something. Sometimes it keeps you attached longer than you should be, because leaving feels like loss. Loss of relevance, loss of structure, loss of community. Football had been his environment for most of his life. Leaving it meant starting over emotionally. Starting over is uncomfortable, especially when you're good at what you're doing. He didn't want retirement to feel like disappearance. He wanted it to feel like transition. But transitions require preparation of a different kind. Mental, emotional, existential. Those preparations are harder to measure, harder to train for. So he postponed them, focused on now, even as the future waited with quiet persistence.
I think I got a lot of respect for the coaches over there and the players over there, and that was just a hard-fought win.
The breaking point wasn't collapse. It was clarity. Travis Kelce realized the fear wouldn't disappear on its own. Ignoring it didn't make it smaller. It made it heavier. He began to understand that football had protected him from certain questions. Who am I without performance? What do I value without competition? Those questions require honesty. Honesty requires vulnerability. Vulnerability isn't rewarded in locker rooms, but it's necessary in life. Kelce didn't announce this realization. He absorbed it quietly, let it reshape how he viewed the future. Fear didn't mean weakness. It meant awareness. Awareness is uncomfortable, but it's also necessary. The silence after football wouldn't be empty. It would be filled with whatever he brought into it. That realization changed everything. Because fear acknowledged becomes manageable. Fear avoided becomes defining.
Because we got a chance. Anytime we have a chance, the confidence got to be sky high, and we got players that can make plays.
Acceptance didn't mean resignation. It meant preparation of a different kind. Travis Kelce began thinking beyond routines and roles, beyond schedules and seasons. He considered what fulfillment might look like without whistles and crowds. Purpose isn't automatic outside of sport. It has to be chosen deliberately. That realization carried responsibility. No coach would assign his next role. No system would validate it. He would have to define it himself. That was both freeing and frightening. Freedom removes excuses. Fright exposes uncertainty. Kelce understood that many athletes struggle because no one teaches them how to be ordinary again. Ordinary feels unfamiliar after excellence. But unfamiliar doesn't mean inferior. It means different. Learning to accept that difference was part of the process. The silence ahead wasn't something to fear. It was something to prepare for.
In the second half there and overtime, and even on the offensive line, guys are stepping up. So
Legacy took on new meaning. Not records, not accolades, but sustainability. Travis Kelce wanted life after football to feel intentional, not accidental. He didn't want to chase noise just to replace noise. That realization changed how he viewed success. Success wasn't just what he accomplished. It was how he transitioned. The fear of the quiet never fully disappeared, but it softened. It became something he could face instead of avoid. Facing it required patience and humility, two traits rarely celebrated in elite sport. He began valuing balance over intensity, reflection over reaction. That shift didn't happen overnight. It evolved slowly, as all meaningful changes do. The stadium would go quiet someday. That was inevitable. The question was no longer whether he feared it, but whether he was ready to live well beyond it.
I don't know. We'll look at it on the film and see where we can be better. And
The hardest part wasn't leaving football. It was trusting that life afterward could still feel meaningful. Travis Kelce had spent decades proving himself through performance. Without that metric, self-worth felt undefined. He had to separate who he was from what he did. That separation is difficult for anyone, especially someone whose identity was built publicly. He learned that purpose doesn't require applause, but it does require intention. Intentional living demands clarity. Clarity demands reflection. Reflection demands silence. The very thing he once feared. Silence stopped feeling threatening. It became informative. It revealed what mattered beyond competition. Connection, contribution, presence. Those values existed long before football. They would exist after. The fear didn't vanish, but it transformed from an obstacle into a guide, showing him where growth was still possible.
that it's always a part of the aftermath of the game.
Pressure had taught Travis Kelce discipline. Fear taught him awareness. Both were necessary. One without the other is incomplete. He realized that life after football wouldn't replicate the intensity of the game. And that was okay. Intensity isn't the only path to fulfillment. Depth matters too. Depth requires slowing down. Slowing down requires trust. Trust that value doesn't disappear when the spotlight fades. Kelce began preparing emotionally, not just physically, preparing to release the version of himself that only existed within the game. That release wasn't loss. It was evolution. The fear of the quiet became less about emptiness and more about opportunity. Opportunity to build something lasting beyond performance. That realization didn't end the journey. It reshaped it, because endings don't have to be abrupt. They can be intentional, and intention makes all the difference.
You're obviously trying to get points in the red zone, and scoring those touchdowns for the defense is huge.
When a stadium goes quiet, life continues. Travis Kelce accepted that truth slowly. The silence didn't erase his experiences. It reframed them. Football had given him discipline, resilience, and perspective. Those didn't disappear with retirement. They translated. The fear that once felt overwhelming now felt manageable. Not because it was gone, but because it was understood. Understanding removes power from uncertainty. He realized that many athletes fear the quiet because no one prepares them for it. Preparation isn't just physical. It's emotional, mental, existential. Kelce chose to approach the future with the same seriousness he approached the game. With intention, with humility, with patience. The silence ahead wasn't a void. It was space. Space to redefine purpose on his own terms. That choice changed how he viewed the end of football. Not as disappearance, but as transition.
We'll definitely try and hone in on that. We were doing really good with that early on in the year, and we just got to stay true to it.
Transition requires letting go of certainty. Travis Kelce learned that certainty had always been provided by structure. Practice schedules, game plans, seasons. Without them, life felt open-ended. Open-ended can be intimidating, but it can also be liberating. He stopped measuring days by performance alone. He measured them by presence, by contribution, by connection. Those measures aren't visible on highlight reels, but they matter longer. The fear of being forgotten softened when he realized legacy isn't sustained by visibility. It's sustained by impact. Impact doesn't end when applause does. It shifts. Kelce understood that the most meaningful chapters often come after the ones people recognize. They're quieter, less celebrated, but more personal. The stadium going quiet didn't mean his story ended. It meant it finally belonged fully to him. And that ownership brought peace.
This year, and I'll make sure that I give everybody the right shout-outs on my podcast.
The biggest fear after football wasn't loneliness. It was disconnection. Disconnection from purpose, from contribution, from meaning. Travis Kelce learned that purpose must be cultivated intentionally once structure disappears. It doesn't arrive automatically. That realization empowered him. Fear lost its grip when he took responsibility for what came next. He didn't need to replicate football. He needed to evolve beyond it. Evolution requires courage. Courage isn't loud. It's consistent. It shows up in daily choices. Kelce embraced the idea that fulfillment doesn't require constant validation. It requires alignment. Alignment between values and actions. That alignment takes time. It's not immediate, but it's durable. The quiet after football wasn't something to escape. It was something to inhabit thoughtfully. Doing so ensured that the end of one chapter didn't define the quality of the next.
Family time, and there's nothing that goes better than football and Thanksgiving, baby.
The biggest fear after football wasn't loneliness. It was disconnection. Disconnection from purpose, from contribution, from meaning. Travis Kelce learned that purpose must be cultivated intentionally once structure disappears. It doesn't arrive automatically. That realization empowered him. Fear lost its grip when he took responsibility for what came next. He didn't need to replicate football. He needed to evolve beyond it. Evolution requires courage. Courage isn't loud. It's consistent. It shows up in daily choices. Kelce embraced the idea that fulfillment doesn't require constant validation. It requires alignment. Alignment between values and actions. That alignment takes time. It's not immediate, but it's durable. The quiet after football wasn't something to escape. It was something to inhabit thoughtfully. Doing so ensured that the end of one chapter didn't define the quality of the next.
We got to win for him. I know that. You can't go back home with any else.
The fear Travis Kelce carried wasn't unique. It's shared by anyone whose identity is tied to performance. Athletes, professionals, caregivers, anyone who measures worth by usefulness. Football simply made the question louder. What happens when the role ends? Kelce's journey shows that fear doesn't mean failure. It means transition is approaching. Transition requires honesty. Honesty requires courage. He learned that strength isn't refusing to feel uncertainty. It's choosing to face it without running. The stadium will go quiet for everyone eventually. Careers end. Roles change. Identities evolve. What matters is how prepared we are for that silence. Kelce's story isn't about avoiding the quiet. It's about learning to live well within it. That lesson extends beyond football, beyond fame. It speaks to anyone wondering who they'll be when the noise stops.
Getting all the food they can possibly get, and
when the stadium goes quiet, the real work begins. Not proving, not performing, but understanding. Travis Kelce's biggest fear after football wasn't losing attention. It was losing direction. Direction can be rebuilt. With intention, with reflection, with honesty. This story isn't about retirement. It's about transition, about facing the silence instead of fearing it. If this resonated, it's because we all carry versions of that fear. Moments when noise fades and questions rise. You're not alone in that experience. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is hardest about life after purpose shifts? And if you value stories that explore the human side of success, subscribe. Because what happens after the applause often matters more than what came before.
And, we're in here every single day grinding our tails off, trying to get that fixed.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss any of our upcoming documentaries.